Welcome to the Podcast Maneuver, the officially unofficial podcast for Picard, Star Trek Picard. That's what the show is called on CBS All Access. I'm Jim.
I'm A.Ron.
And we watched Season 1, Episode 9, titled Et in Arcadia Ego, Part 1. A.Ron, do you have any idea what this title means?
Yeah, I looked at, so there's a famous painting with this title that is this depicting like some shepherds and a lady in a very utopian pastoral scene. And it means even in Arcadia, there is death. And Arcadia is like an old-timey classical word for like a utopia or paradise. So
yeah, it kind of met the areas outside of the hellscape that is the city.
Yeah. Like even in apparently a paradise situation, you still have death. And it was very... very on the nose for this episode, where we uncover an apparent cybernetic utopia that us biologicals are going to go in there and fuck up.
Yeah, and you've got a bio person who is, I think, actively dying or approaching the end of his life.
We got multiple people. I think Picard and Dr. Soon Jr. both seem like they're having some kind of problem. Are we going to get Robo Picard?
Maybe there's some discussion on the forums about Picard dying and putting him in an underwear model's body for next season.
Oh, see, I thought they would just put him in. You're right. That would be a way to have Picard. Oh my God,
it'd be terrible. It'd be so bad.
You'd have to do the world's greatest casting, and it would have to be Patrick Stewart saying, "I'm just too old for this shit. I love Star Trek, and I wanted to help him." I'm going into Bela Lugosi. I was trying for Patrick Stewart. I ended up. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's not Patrick Stewart.
I went Transylvania, and I was trying to go Patrick Stewart at Transylvania.
I mean, you could put him in Justin Bieber. He was an underwear model at one point, wasn't he? I don't know. Or Josh Holloway.
It makes sense.
Lost.
It makes sense, though. He's an old man, and, do you want to build a franchise around him? But on the other hand, they've got this... This is kind of ghoulish. Can we admit that this is ghoulish? The entire idea that you give a fictional character a indefinite but terminal prognosis, just so in case he dies in the middle of the sea, you can just roll with it in plot terms.
Yeah,
but it is pretty ghoulish.
It is. But in Arcadia Ego. So.
In Arcadia Ego, is it any more or less ghoulish than to talk about recasting him into a robot body?
No, certainly not.
No.
If anything, I think
they're both plot elements to walk around a real life man's death,
Right?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. Not sure what their plan is for this, if that was part of this consideration for the whole plot of this thing and his, aromatic syndrome or not.
Yeah.
Don't know.
What did you actually think of this episode? We haven't actually got to that part.
So it's weird because this show has never been more TNG than this episode. Like going down to the planet of extraordinarily fit people wearing silk robes, that's so TNG. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah. And there's some really cool ideas and concepts. Like I sort of like the idea that this was not necessarily a warning for us, but sort of an offer of help to the synthetics.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Very cool. So, but I mean, there's also a lot of dumb shit.
Oh yeah.
What are you going to do?
You're right. It does. I had the same thought when they go down to this planet and everyone's dressed in these crazy, Star Trek's always been a little horny, maybe even a lot horny. And this felt very much like one of those early season episodes where, can you imagine if Riker was with him?
Oh my God.
Halfway through the episode, Sutra would be stroking his chest hair and be like, I've never met an organic like you. You're just so distinct and individual. And, Riker would be wiggling his eyebrows. And then she would, I can't kill these biologics because Riker's dick is just that good. So it did feel like that too. But also it had that classic TNG two-parter, like pulling out all the stops.
Yep.
Like, we got a space battle, and holy shit, a Borg cube, and oh my God, these space organs are gonna fucking drag him down to a planet for crash landing. And the 7 of 9 is gonna turn this thing into some kind of probably self-evident planetary defense system. That's going to wipe out 218 Romulan warbirds next episode. That's like pretty exciting, best of both worlds kind of class stakes and action and drama. But yeah, also
actually,
a lot of stupid shit.
A lot of stupid shit. I was wondering do you remember how many ships were at Wolf 359 to fight that Borg cube?
At least 359 wolves, let alone ships.
Because I'm thinking, could a Borg cube take on 200 something Romulan warbirds? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's three of them struggled to take on Janeway's ship at times, so
that's true.
You know,
but that was Voyager.
That's the thing. Like, if Janeway if Janeway comes out of retirement, crash lands the Voyager right in the middle of 7 and 9's cube, unbeatable.
Yeah,
let us rip open a transwarp conduit and take the whole fucking planet to Arcadia.
What do you think about getting into this episode?
Let's do it.
All right, we start with La Sirena emerging from the transwarp conduit, completely unscathed, but Narek has followed them through, and La Sirena is in trouble until the Borg cube comes to the rescue. And some giant flowers, some big old orchids, envelop La Sirena and the Borg cube and drag it down to the planet. And then Picard goes into a trance and thanks everyone for coming. What was that about?
Man, I thought they were going to explain it in the plot, but they just didn't. Like,
they might. It's a part 1, so I'm hoping part 2 will.
Because I thought it was like the synthetics making first contact, like somehow taking over his mind, because they played it like that. They played it like classic Picard being overtaken by something. But then also, I think the plot wants us to believe that this was related to whatever brain kookiness he's experiencing. Whatever brain. I'm going to call this a brain cloud, because they're trying real hard not to say Uramaji syndrome. I'm going to call it brain cloud from Tom Hanks's classic Joe versus the Volcano. Okay. He's afflicted with a brain cloud. It's bad. It's some kind of disease. It's serious. It's probably going to kill him, but who knows what the symptoms. The symptoms might be he talks like he's possessed by an alien spirit. Mm-hmm.
There's a third option, too, which is that he's somehow connecting to the Borg consciousness that Seven has reinstituted on the Borg cube.
Oh, that is a good possibility.
So, like, yeah, there are 3 options out there, and I kind of like that. They've sort of left a lot of pathways for this to go down.
Because they called him there, but there's this. The thing is this first. I thought the first 15 minutes of this show was really all over the place, because I did not get the sensation from watching the crew that they were being drugged to a crash landing, right? Like, everyone was like super chill about this space flower enveloping them and dragging them into violent re-entry. Everything on fire, everything on flames. The Sirena crash lands and looks like it's really fucked up. It's got like hull damage and there's shit sparking. But I at no time undergoing this. Like when in Generations, the Enterprise classic 1701D was crash landing on fucking Malcolm McDowell world. Data grabbed the console and said, "Oh shit." Because it was a fucking event they were going through. These people were just like, well, I guess these flower petals, and
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, the power was totally out. Were we able to see if there was a window out the front, or is that just a view screen?
It looked like there were actual physical windows on this ship, because you could see the darkness, and then you could also see like the flames starting to eat through the flower shields.
Gotcha. I couldn't remember.
But they also established that like the Borg ship was going to crash land on this planet, and like, oh my God, maybe no one even survives. But they all survive,
right? With
no explanation.
No, it was kind of weird. But I will say it was pretty awesome to see the Borg cube hitting the atmosphere.
I was at a war with like, this is so fucking cool, and this is so fucking silly and dumb, and I don't I wonder if like they got all the actor scenes before they actually decide what was going on with the ship. It's like, hey,
and just did it in post.
Yeah, like we're going to because like we're not sure if they're going to be beamed down, or we're not sure if they're this or that. So just kind of everyone have a neutral effect, and then we'll fix it with the CGI flowers. Because it's like they just didn't act like they were in any kind of danger, and it seemed like they were in crazy danger.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, same thing with Picard when he has this out of body experience. I don't think it was very clear about what happened, and they never actually clarified it for us either.
I mean, that's true of this show in general. Like, look at how Jurati acts. 1 minute she's like talking about hell coming to Earth, and the next minute she's giggling about how cute the android is. Like this shit is inconsistent across the board. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were just like,
I've resolved that in myself, that she has literally gone crazy from the mind meld. And I guess you could say Picard can act bizarre. Picard can act bizarre because he's got the brain cloud. Everyone else, Rios's ship, he should be acting concerned for his own fucking life and the fact that his ship is getting fucked up, you know? Girardi's the only one losing her mind throughout all this, and, you know, when she's the rational voice, I get worried.
Yeah, it's crazy because, I mean, can you imagine, like, astronauts on re-entry not having parachutes for the capsules or anything? Like,
right.
They
or the
would just splash down at hundreds of miles an hour.
Yeah, or the parachute's a daffodil that's rapidly losing its structural integrity, you know?
Right.
Also, like, why we're getting all the silly stuff out. Really? That transwarp tunnel just opens right above planetary orbit?
Apparently.
That's some fucking convenient transwarp conduit right there.
Sure is. The Borg, man, they've got roads to everywhere.
They put the Roman Empire to shame.
Except Earth. Because then they would just come in and kill us all.
Yeah, they keep on sending the construction crew, and we keep on blowing up their cubes and sending them back in time, and it's really rude.
It's true. Okay, then we get some flashbacks to Picard's doctor and his vineyard, and Picard wakes up in sickbay, and there's no power on the ship. Girardi has examined him with an old tricorder and found out that he has brain problems, the brain cloud. No power. I don't know if you're aware of this, means no emergency holograms. Oh yeah, we're rid of the 5.
Yep.
The dirty 5.
The dirty 5
I don't know what to call them.
Are gone. No power.
The emergency 5.
I like the idea that this ship has like manual blast shutters though that like can provide light. I don't know why you would engineer a ship like that. Mm-hmm. I guess I never assumed that Rio's ship was capable of atmospheric flight. So I'm trying.
It's pretty small though.
I'm trying to think of what circumstances that would, under normal operation, come in handy to be able to flood a bay with light. But I don't know.
Or to keep the light out. Maybe, especially in sick bay, maybe you've got some photosensitive disease or something, and you just shut out the light.
Well, I think the ship should have armor plate all over it, like, you know, so it can, you know, because this ship also seems. Man, how did Rios get his hands on this ship? He's a civilian pilot, and he's got a ship that's got fucking phasers and stuff. That's pretty wild.
I don't know. Maybe they'll go more into his backstory after, you know, his captain.
I mean, I think it's cool
himself,
that he's essentially Han Solo. He's got a Millennium Falcon that's this old freighter that's got like way souped up engines, and he
won it in a Sabbath game.
Yeah,
obviously.
Right. Space Landau Calrissian.
Oh, he won it in a game of 3D chess. That must
4D
be it.
Chess. 3D chess is just chess.
4D chess.
Actually, yeah, he won an old school 3D chess with his old school tricorder.
He did on Yahoo Games. Okay, so afterward, Picard tells his crew that his brain doesn't work right and he's dying, and that's the last they'll speak of it. Then there's a status report during which Soji says she remembers a station nearby that she might have lived in after she was created, and Picard suggests they walk there.
I mean, it's weird. Like, I felt like this is a meta moment where, like, Picard and John and Patrick Stewart are speaking as one. Like, we know this is all ghoulish, and it's kind of gross to be speculating about it. So let's just, I'm dying. I got the brain cloud, and let's hear no more of it. Except for this, we hear this every 15 minutes in the episode.
Right. Everybody who meets him brings it up.
Yeah, he has to have tearful goodbyes. And boy, Patrick Stewart's still pretty emotionally stunted. Not Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard, despite his protestations to the contrary.
And he's talking about things pissing him off, which doesn't strike me as particularly Picard language. But, you know, this is a 15-year on Picard, 20-year on Picard.
I thought it was a pretty good speech. It's just they now can go PG-13 with it.
Yeah. All right, so the crew gears up and then notices that the cube has crashed as well, and they decide we're going to go there instead of the station that you were talking about. And when they get there, they're reunited with Elnor and Seven, who are miraculously fine.
So this is another thing that I thought was wild, that they came to this planet and risked all and crash landed on it to forewarn the synths that the Romulans are a-coming. And because two friends of theirs might have survived, they ditch that plan and walk I don't know how long it takes to get this Borg cube, but that was a hike that they made to the Borg cube to make sure that they're all okay, and then walking back. That like it seems like this is an unnecessary waste of time.
I agree. They probably should have split the party at that point.
Yes,
like Soji and Picard go to wherever she lived. Rios and Jurati go, and Rafi go find what happened to Seven and Elnor.
Yeah, they should have split the party when they split the party in unusual, weird ways. I thought too later on, like who they leave and who they take and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know.
At this point in the episode, I was super disappointed because, well, okay, I was psyched because we got to see the Borg cube crash and it was amazing. But I was super disappointed because they just took maybe the coolest aspect of this entire show, which is the idea that they would be running around on a Borg cube as their main ship and dashed it to the ground. And I was like, oh my God. But I think by the end of this episode, we're supposed to understand they'll have it up and running in like a day.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool when that thing rises from the surface again. While 7-9 is like her eyes black as a great white shark, full Borg queen effect. It's going to be cool.
What if Locutus of Borg gets put into 7 of 9's body somehow?
That would be an interesting show.
Yeah.
I would like to see that. Sure.
And then he can be the pilot. He can connect up to the Borg cube, pilot it.
They also, this is the other thing that's like, this is one of these ex-Borgs walk up and be like, Locutus. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, are these Borg, ex-Borg, are they aware of their condition? Are they aware of how other people, are they aware about how they feel about it? Are they still like kind of Borg except for they're autonomous? Like, what is the deal? Why would you call him something that you would think would trigger? And also, why did Picard get triggered by it? I felt like it's been a long time, and like that he had kind of appreciated what like Hugh and him were trying to do, or what Hugh was trying to do with the XBs. And he got real empathy and said he's going to champion their cause. And then one of these guys calls him Locutus, and he starts doing the a thing again. It's weird.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like they did much. They've got two competing ideas here, right? He wants to protect Soji, or he wants to help Soji out, and then he also is dealing with this Borg shit. And both of those things are kind of coming to the forefront in this episode. So like, where are they going with this in part 2?
Yeah.
Are they going to do more with the Locutus, the Borg angle? Now that, he's in prison, I'm sure he'll get out like 10 minutes into the next episode. But I don't know, because it does seem like they have a clear mission. They have plenty of plot going on with that, the Soji stuff, that they don't really need to do this Locutus stuff right now. Maybe save that, but they do keep reminding us over and over, like you said.
Yeah, it's like they're really trying to keep a lot of these balls up in the air, and it feels like they're going to drop some of them. Have to, because Picard so far this season promised to champion the Romulans, the X-Borg, and all synthetic life. And he still hasn't been able to keep his first promise to the Romulans. And in fact, when he got some stiff resistance, he just packed up his bald head and went home. So I don't know. Then I'm glad that the episode actually calls. We'll talk about that, but the episode actually calls Jean-Luc on a little bit of his bullshit. But anyway,
all right, let's talk about Seven telling Picard what happened after he left the cube and how she found them. And also, they're working on getting the cube back online. Rafi sees 218 warbirds headed their way. She makes a comment about only needing to worry about the first 109. Why?
If you're looking,
why?
You've come to the wrong place for answers, my friend. Because, like, if she'd have said, it's like, well, that's not so bad, because really you only have to worry. The first 1 or 2 are going to do the job. Like, giving an idea that it's massive overkill. But when you're talking about 109, like, why the first half? Do you actually think you can deal with the first half?
The first 109 cubes? No.
Yeah, with your you're gonna take 109
warbirds? Yeah, no.
With your busted cube and Picard's friends with a few phasers, quote unquote.
That's why I was asking how many ships are a Wolf 359, because I was wondering if there was like some number there that had significance within Star Trek, but I didn't understand that.
As prophesied, the Romulans will come with one less ship. 219, and the Borg would just pack it in, call it a day. But 218, they know from Wolf 359, they can handle that many Alpha Quadrant ships easy. Well, the other thing is, like, what is this? so Picard has this little speech out of nowhere where 7 of 9 says, well, I foresaw this coming, and I was like at one with the universe, and I did all the right moves, and I guess you're supposed to understand that that's how she guided the cube down to a smooth crash landing or put everyone in stasis. I don't know what kind of Borg Queen power she's got. But then Picard says, in a massive swing in the conversation, poor Hugh, it must have taken an appalling brutality to turn such a gentle soul to violence. 7 of 9 doesn't. That's it. 7 of 9 does not acknowledge it. That part of the conversation goes nowhere. And I'm like, first of all, yes, we saw the appalling brutality and the dehumanization. Second, Hugh turning to violence?
Elnor turned to violence, but that's kind of been his thing.
Yeah, it's a drop of a hat with Elnor. Hugh was just kind of go like, hey, I want to get the cube. I mean, do we think that Hugh is going to use the Borg to just like fucking eviscerate the Romulans? They're going to dismember them. He's going to Borgify them. Like, I thought he would just like use their superior numbers to like capture them, detain them, and then take the Borg cube to Federation space so they'd be safe. I didn't get that he was going to kill everyone.
No, me either. I'm trying to remember in this scene, does 7 use this moment to sort of obfuscate her involvement in the deaths of all those Borg? Is she like pushing that blame onto Hugh?
I
don't quite remember.
I don't think so, but no, I don't know. It's just weird to have him like say that thing out of nowhere, and it just doesn't lead to anything. It's just kind of like,
it's not even a moment. They don't make a moment out of it. It's just a single line, and nobody really reacts to it very much, and then they move on.
You know what it's like? It's like at the end of the first Michael Bay Transformers, where like Jazz, first in command of the Autobots, have literally been torn in half, and Optimus Prime bends down and picks up one half and says, "Oh, poor Jazz," and like drops him, and then turns to the camera and gives a heroic, like it's that kind of level of like, poor Hugh. Drop his body, turn to the camera. I'm gonna fight for synth rights. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
All right, then we move on to Eleanor. Eleanor?
Yes.
That's what I'm calling him from now on. Eleanor brings up the fact that Picard's dying to highlight that his mission is more hopeless than Seven's, and therefore he should go with Picard. And Picard tells Eleanor that he needs to stay here and that he's proud of him. After telling Seven that the safety of the galaxy is in her hands, that's a big responsibility. He leaves with his crew.
It's weird too that like, so here's the thing. If you want to leave, because he's like, you need to stay here and work on the defensive systems. What the fuck expertise does Elnor have on working on defensive systems of a Borg starship? Like, you have 2 former Starfleet officers who might be able to do something. You've got like a really gifted cyber geneticist, whatever. Like, she probably is better off going to the android town. But like, why the fuck? And
you've got the Borg Queen.
And you got the Borg Queen.
If anyone is less qualified, if anyone is more qualified than Seven, please stand up now.
Yeah, like I just thought it was weird to have Rafi and Rios come with him and leave Elnor to work on the defensive systems.
Yeah, I think they just didn't want Elnor going with him. I think Picard just is annoyed by Elnor.
Are they? Because I got the feeling that maybe he's not a long-term part of the plot. Like, he's being left behind, and he's going to be kind of like, maybe they'll use him like Jerry Ryan in future seasons, where they, might bring him back for a special guest experience, kind of like what they did with Wesley Crusher.
Yeah.
Eventually he went to Starfleet and just
he'll
kind of
go
never
off to
came
Starfleet
back.
Academy.
Yeah, once a year he would come back and like, oh yeah, the Traveler wants to induct you into the Brotherhood of the Travelers, or you fucking covered up a death in the Academy, Wesley. This isn't Starfleet. Like, they'd have one a season. You'll bring Elnor back, and
yeah, you and Tom Paris covered up a death. What they need to do in that case is they need to instill him as an integral part of the crew that absolutely needs to be there, and then he can go off to Starfleet.
Yeah,
and then they can replace him with ensign after ensign after ensign every single week.
Right, rotating a batch of ensigns.
Yeah, rotating batch of Romulan warriors. But that would be akin to the Wesley stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So the crew arrives at a synthetic hippie commune where Soji is welcomed home, and the head synth examines Picard's crow's feet, and then Soji tells him that the Romulans are on their way. They don't have enough time to make more defenses, and we're introduced to Dr. Alton Inigo soon.
Played by Brent Spiner. They have a lot of fun with that.
They sure do.
Looks like Data if he'd gone old and soft.
I had a lot of fun with it too. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was. You're right. This feels like classic Star Trek. That they go and they crest the hill, and it's like, oh look, it's the android utopia, and it's just some asshole's mansion in Malibu, and they got like some of these people look exactly like they're human. Some of them have like they're black, but they have that kind of gold sheen that Data has. Some of them have Data eyes. Some of them don't. It's why is any of this like this, man? I
feel like these are iterations. Like, Maddox was working on perfecting this technology, and over the years, which I think it's been like, 14 years he's been researching this stuff. So over 14 years, he's iterated on the perfection.
And you can't just like put version 1.0 of Saga into the wood chipper. Like, we got the version of you without gold eyes, freaky gold eyes. Let's thanks for your service, Saga 1.0. It's like that wouldn't be in keeping with respect for synthetic life forms. You would think they could just upgrade their physicality, though. Like, but I don't know. He's really proud of Saga's eyes. He likes them gold eyes.
He does. Yeah, he mourns the eyes when they die.
The eyes when they die. That's the unique, irreplaceable eyeballs of an android.
I don't know. It was a weird moment.
Yeah. A lot of this stuff is fun. But yeah, her touching it's like, oh, these are just lines on your face, but they imply so much more. Like, this would be more powerful if she didn't live with an old man. Like, literally 30 seconds later, just 3 years younger Brent Spiner shuffles into the room and says, oh yeah, look at me, I'm fucking Data, except for I've got lines on my face.
But he does the exact same thing to Picard. He's like, oh, you're so old and so wise.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't realize how weird that moment was, given the circumstances.
Pretty weird.
Okay, so Soji apologizes for bringing the Romulans here, and then a synth who looks just like Soji shows up. Her name is Sutra, and she mind melds with Jurati to see what the Romulans showed her. She sees that the admonition wasn't really a warning. It was an offer of help from an alliance of synthetics to any synthetics who might find it. What are we doing here? So this Alton Soong is a genius beyond compare. He's not only figured out how to perfectly create synthetic life, far better than his father ever did, and at the same time, he has taught that thing how to mind meld. He has created a positronic matrix.
It taught itself because it was it had a passion for it.
I don't understand how this works, because I always thought there was something within the Vulcan mind physiologically that let it actually communicate with humans in this way or other beings in this way. I didn't realize that it was a skill you could learn.
I think it's both, because because the Romulans can't do it anymore, but not because they're physiologically too similar. It's just because they haven't been focusing the discipline. I suppose it's like, if you had a species, if you had Earthlings, because we all have a couple special powers that we don't actually do. Like, every one of us, if you're a healthy adult, has the ability to potentially hold your breath for like 10 minutes. But not all of us.
Okay, but we all have lungs, right? But we all have lungs.
But
like, here's the thing. I'm thinking this is akin to like telling a being with arms to learn how to catch.
No, I was going to agree with you.
Or without arms,
I was going to agree with you. I was going to agree that there's a genetic basis. I was just going to take that. It's like, what if you had a planet, you take humans and you take them on a planet, put them on a water world, and like 99% of the population practices, suppressing their breathing cycles, and they can all hold their breath for 10 or 15 minutes, and it's no big deal. And then you go on the other planet where they live on a desert and no one can hold their breath past 30 seconds. Like, there's no physical difference, but there's a difference in like philosophy and what they've been practicing, and probably some kind of selection. But yeah, there's got to be some kind of psionic. But then again, if these things are like, if Soji is indistinguishable from a flesh and blood person, but then, she doesn't have the I was about to say, it's like, I don't know how much violence this is doing to Star Trek canon, and I'm not really a canon purist, but like, Data was able to do a Vulcan neck pinch, but I always thought that was just Vulcans being strong. So like, if you know the right place to pinch and you're strong enough to do it, anyone can Vulcan neck pinch. Maybe Worf could even learn to do it. But the mind meld, pretty fucking wild.
Yeah, that requires a certain level of interfacing with the human mind, which actually brings up questions about how do you say that something that can interface this closely with the human mind is not some kind of being, sentient being,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, would we, if we were to put a human into a brain that had this capacity, we would certainly call them a being at that point.
For sure.
Yeah. So it brings up, all the questions that we've kind of dealt with in Star Trek around data in the past. But I think the Federation at this point wants to ignore after the Mars attack.
I mean, that's the thing is like these beings are clearly sentient creatures with agency of their own, the ability to like weigh out like cause and effect and, risk and all that thing. Like they are like, I hope that future episodes of this doesn't spend too much time belaboring whether these are people or not, because it's very self-evident that they're people. Even the most limited of them are people.
And I guess the real question then becomes, are we willing to suppress these people's right to exist in order to protect the galaxy?
And they have and what's interesting, and I thought the dual purpose of the admonition / offer of assistance, I thought was particularly brilliant, and the fact that the androids are in the exact same place that we are, which is, should we snuff out this form of life to protect our own?
Yeah.
Because there's evidence that we can't trust them.
Hopefully the things we built will be better than us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're all doomed.
So I'm saying there's so much synchronicity between Westworld and Picard right now. And I'm not even sure what show is going about it in the smarter way, to be honest. But there's this really interesting, like, what if we make, because it wasn't Westworld last night that said something about we created stuff that is capable of like living forever or is this Picard? See, I can't even tell. One of the androids in one of these series had some monologue about you made something that could be perfect, and that perfection scared you and made you. I think that was definitely Picard, right? Or was it Westworld?
Yeah, we just need to put Mr. Robot back on the air, and then our confusion can be complete.
Yeah.
Because, I couldn't tell you.
But either one of them could have made the point that, like,
yes,
anytime you deal with something that you make that's essentially a better copy of you, it's going to trigger, like, your paranoia and your jealousy and all this, all these, the negative things about humanity. And it's fascinating to see the androids struggle with the same thing. Like going from put upon victims to like, holy shit, we actually are in possession of an erase all biological life button.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me, them turning this idea of it being a warning, this admonition being a warning, into it being a distress signal, essentially, for the synthetics, because that might also explain why it drives organic beings insane. Maybe this information is coded such that you almost have to be a synthetic life form to even grasp it, to have it not drive you insane when you understand it.
Yeah, and the other thing that's kind of exciting is it's like this is almost a synthetic Q continuum is the idea I'm getting. They
seem extremely powerful, yeah.
This higher dimensional beings that are purely synthetic that are there to, and I'm like, I wonder if this is going to end in some kind of like enforced neutral zone thing, like the synthetic Q will show up and then actual Q show up and be like, look, I get that these guys are assholes, but we've got them on their own kind of trial thing, and you need to fuck off. Like there might be this like carving out of the galaxy for synthetic life, and it's enforced by some kind of like actual barrier.
I mean, you could put them in the old Romulan space, right?
Right. I mean, I think that's what happened in the old series. Why we got these neutral zones, because some advanced third party life form essentially put us in our respective corners and said, y'all need to chill out. And it'd be kind of fascinating for like artificial Q and real Q to like be like, yo, you're on our turf.
Yeah.
Only we get to fuck with the humans, I think that would be an interesting way to like end this whole thing. But it'll probably be the Borg Q whipping 218 Romulan warbirds' asses. Yeah.
And then getting its ass kicked. Yeah.
Yeah, once it hits 109 limit.
Right. Okay, Jurati goes to see Soong to talk about Maddox, and he scolds her for killing Maddox and gives her an opportunity to redeem herself by helping him figure out I think, how to get his mind into a host body and get out of the park. Wait,
so fucking Westworld, man.
Wrong show.
I know. Like when they pop that open, there's this like, semi-synthetic translucent
Golem
thing being created. I'm like, holy shit, we're back in the park.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's funny because he says, I think they use the same terminology. It's like, I think substrate was something they talked about in Westworld, probably because they're watching Westworld too.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that Bruce was the guy who did the brains, and Soon Jr. is the guy who did the body work, so he can't get his mind into this body. The other thing I was saying is like, so I think his way forward is that like he'll say that he's a synthetic life form. I wonder if the synthetics will see it that way. Like, nah, you're still a human. You're still
just
a flesh
transplant.
bag. Yeah, you got all of our strengths, but you don't know what it's like to be us. You don't know what it's like to be hunted. So you're gonna have to be. I wonder if they're gonna play like that kind of game.
It could be, yeah, because I mean, I don't know. There's probably a distinction if you were to take this to Starfleet and say, okay, look, we've created an entirely new life form, versus, okay, look, we can stick you into these amazing bodies. You'll look like an underwear model for the rest of eternity. I think it would be interesting to see that argument. Like, what separates you at that point from the synthetics?
That's a great
Not
question.
much.
Yeah. Like
it might just be outlook on things,
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what I'm saying. Your brains, your ability to do compassion, empathy is going to be different from a synthetic.
It might be.
And the other thing is like, this is very human AI, like their outlooks on life. I don't know how you do this, because I've always waited for someone to tell a story of an artificial life where they don't even look at life the same as we do. Like they don't broadly value the same ideals. These people just seem like literally humans. They're just as vain, petty, selfish, prone to fear mongering, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, it's interesting because I think in organic life forms, you always have the common drive, which is to procreate, to survive. I think with synthetic life forms, it could be different because they don't necessarily need to procreate because they can live forever.
Right.
Repair themselves, fix things that are wrong.
Like replace if you lose some, but you don't have to play this genetic lottery game.
Yeah, there's no real strong drive to actually make more of themselves.
That's a good point. Good point.
That could be the difference. Since Soji and Sutra discuss what they're going to do about the Romulans, and Sutra has a plan, but Soji doesn't like it because a lot of people are going to die, and then Narek is captured, just brought in.
Literally kicking and screaming.
That sounds right.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. And then Rios and Girardi say a temporary goodbye as he goes to get the ship running, and she stays at the facility to help with Soong's work. I liked seeing Spot 2 here. That was a nice touch.
Yeah, that was when the final runners up to podcast name is Spot Watch. And we were finally, one season in, we'd gotten a Spot sighting.
This is all Bruce Maddox, right? I mean, it has to be, because Soong wouldn't know anything about Data's pet.
Right.
So yeah, it's good. That's brought in by Maddox.
Although it's wild. I love the fact that it's a RoboCat. But also, yeah, I thought it was kind of weird to go back a little bit that the androids apparently all worship Picard in some way. Like they all look like. Did Maddox get them all around the campfire every weekend and say, "Let me tell you about the story of Captain Picard, champion of synthetic life"? This guy fought.
I'm sure that happened.
I tried to treat you all like property, but this man came down and said, "Nah, not my golden-skinned, golden-eyed lieutenant commander." Like, is that
so? Okay, I know there's something around them being created literally from parts of Data's brain.
Right.
Is there any genetic memory here of who Picard is? Is there some part of the positronic neurons or whatever the hell they created these life forms out of that remembers who Picard was to Data?
I guess that's possible. Seems kind of dumb, but it is possible.
Yeah. I don't know. So then Saga gives Rafi a tool that fixes things if she uses her imagination. I don't know what the hell this thing is. What the hell is this thing? It looks like an ocarina. But...
I was about to say, it looks like something you'd blow to conjure a tornado to take you to the underworld entrance, in Zelda.
Absolutely. Rafi says an emotional goodbye. Wait, my notes say Rafi says an emotional goodbye to Rafi, which might be true with enough snake leaf.
Next, yeah, you get disassociate, become one of the universe.
Pretty sure I meant Picard as she leaves to get the ship fixed, and he stays behind.
Yeah, I thought he was going to stonewall her on the "I love you." Then he said, "The world's most insincere, I love you back." Right?
Was
also,
it insincere?
It's also kind of fucked up because, like, the way this actor portrayed this with Rafi, I felt like this could have been a confession of romantic love. It could have been what I think is just like a friendship, camaraderie love, like a father-daughter relationship. It's kind of, I don't know, man. It somewhat bothered me that I didn't get a good read on like what they were actually saying, and also. Is this more about the situation, or is it more about him dying?
I think, look, they have a complicated relationship. I feel like Picard has a hate the snake, don't hate the playa attitude toward Rafi. So like when he says, "I love you," there's a lot of baggage with that. It's like he has a lot of affection for this person that he served with for a long time. And obviously, based on his nickname, became very, very close with. But also she is kind of out there. Like there's a lot of stuff that I think Picard doesn't approve of, in her lifestyle. And there's a lot of guilt on his part, I think, for not believing her about this Romulan thing for the longest time.
Which they haven't really addressed.
Not fully, no.
This is like my dad with the coronavirus. Up to last week, it was just a fucking media hoax, and now it's like, I don't know if you're taking this serious, son. This is like really serious business. We all need to like... Yeah. Like, are we going to pretend like last week didn't happen? Like, I think she deserves an extended "I told you so."
Absolutely.
She's not gotten that.
No, and I think that's weighing on this conversation.
Yeah, you might be right there.
But yeah, I don't know. I like this moment. I think, as someone who is familiar with how reserved Picard is in most emotional situations, like him around children is hilarious. Him in any kind of uncomfortable relationship scenario is great.
The biggest laugh in Star Trek Next Generation history is then during that I think it's the second episode where they all get space flu that makes them take off their clothes and get horny. And when Beverly Crusher comes in his ready room to give him an update, but then she starts unzipping her outfit, and he literally just gets in her face and goes like that. He just puts up this stiff upper lip of British haram to quash her horniness. I swear to God, it's the funniest thing. So this is this man. At least he didn't give her the full haram.
Wow, I need to go watch the early seasons of TNG again.
It's the second episode, the Naked Now or something like that. Yesterday's Naked Now. I don't know. Right.
Okay, Picard contacts Starfleet to get their assistance protecting the synths from the Romulan fleet. Narek's thirsty, but since he's their first prisoner, the synths don't know how to treat him. And Soji tells Saga they can't trust Narek despite his protests and proclamations of love. When he doesn't get his way, he tries to scare her with threats, but she's unfazed, and when she leaves, Saga tells Narek that she'll get him what he wants.
Yeah, he's just reading from the big book of emotional abuse. Try pity, and that doesn't work. Try love bomb, and that doesn't work.
Tal Shiar Spycraft, Chapter 3.
Yeah. What happens when you've already burned the bridge, but you still need them? You have essentially nothing to say. I like how they focused on the blue bird that this Saga is wearing, just so like 5 minutes before it happens where that's going to end up. I actually thought it was going to be embedded into her chest. I didn't see the eyeball coming. But yeah. I'm not sure why that would actually do the job either. Like, I think if you did that to Data, he would just look at you funny. Like, why did you ram this thing through my eyeball? This sucks, dude.
Yeah.
But it disables her.
His depth perception might be a little strange, but other than that, I don't think it would. He just do that
thing where he runs the self-diagnostics where he does this with his hands back and forth, and then he'd be fine. Because that's all you got to do to be right as rain in Android land.
Anything else on that scene?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's move on to Starfleet not responding to Picard.
Of course.
Like, did you not see that coming, Picard? They're not going to suddenly change their mind because you found a bunch of
right. You
androids.
were ordered to go to Deep Space, 12, and report with a report with a fleet, and instead you took a Borg transwarp conduit, crashed a Borg cube onto a planet, and made first contact with these aliens that we black opted away.
And do you really think you can appeal to whatever regulations Starfleet has around first contact in this scenario? They've already banned these life forms.
No, Admiral Clancy's just doing full-on double hand palm back at Starfleet headquarters. And
Soji says she couldn't understand the logic of sacrifice before now, and Picard tells her, oh, it's just a matter of perspective. Essentially, it depends on if you're the person holding the knife.
I think this is interesting, and it's also interesting against the backdrop of coronavirus, because there is this, I think it's a minority voice now, but it's pretty loud about that's essentially making the argument of like, okay, look, 1 to 3% of people are going to die, most are going to be sick, it's mostly going to be elderly. How many billions of dollars do you want to put a price on that life? Like the economic argument, and I think that's a horrific argument to make. Like those kind of arguments, I think Picard's like, it's like, look, if you're making an argument about who needs to live and who needs to die, it better be because you crash landed on the side of some Andes mountain and you haven't seen anyone for 6 months, and you're debating about whether we should eat the bodies of the dead, and whether, like, when we get down to it and there's only 3 of us left, who should get eaten, right?
Can you eat a synthetic?
I don't know.
Okay.
You can certainly derail an analogy involving them.
I totally understand, though. Yeah, that's a matter of life and death for everyone.
Yeah, but when you're talking about, like, you got trillions of people smart in the galaxy with strength and power, and like or like in this case, you got like a globe of 7 billion people that have resources and wealth and material, to be acting like we can just let 1 or 3% people die because some marginal utility seems crazy. But the thing is that argument works against Picard, because these small android people have 218 Romulan warbirds coming there that will absolutely wipe them off the face of the earth. Right. And their best. So Picard's offering them an uncertain hope of, if you trust me, in 24 hours we can get our busted starship fixed. We can get you all on board this thing and bone off.
And then Starfleet will listen to what I say.
Yeah, versus calling in the android Avengers, who will treat you like Thanos and beat your ass and beat you, kill you. So
no, I mean, I like the line. It depends on if you're the person holding the knife, because to the person holding the knife, this is a necessary sacrifice. Yeah. To the people being sacrificed, it's an intolerable cruelty.
You're right.
It's a complete injustice. So like, it's all a matter of perspective when you're talking about making the sacrifice. And there are multiple sides here that you have to see this through the lens of.
And for maximum effect, as they're getting done with the philosophical discussion, a woman screams. Mm-hmm. She is immediately confronted with the results of her being lenient and merciful. And resolves, I should have killed him when I had the chance. And like, though this is so relevant to her situation. Amazing. Yeah.
So you kind of moved us into the next portion of this. Sutra takes watch over Narek. That's fine. And asked if he wants to get out of here because he needs his services. And then Soji ponders the ethics of killing to survive, and Picard's concerned. Before anything can come of it, there's a scream. They run outside and see Saga stabbed through the eye and Narek gone. And Soji laments not killing him when she could have. Let's keep rolling into the final scene here, where Sutra goes on a public tirade against the Romulans and says they have just enough time to call in the synthetic reinforcements. Picard implores them instead to join him on his ship so he can keep them safe and be their advocate. And Soong says it won't work because they won't listen to Picard. He's tried this before and it failed. So they take Picard prisoner and let Jurati continue her work with Soong. And finally, the Romulans are just a day away.
Yeah, like, and the thing is she uses a scapegoat. I mean, again, all this stuff is pretty relevant, that like she lets Narek go. She engineers this crisis to use it as a wedge issue amongst all the synths. It worked in Soji in a microcosm, and now it's working for them all. And Picard comes by and says, he essentially gives him the Romulan speech. Like, hey, I'll be your champion. I'll trust in me. I'll save you. And I think Brent Spiner must have really loved it. Coming in as being like, yeah, you're full of shit. And these guys are too young and synthetic and naive to know it, but this is the old Picard tongue getting, writing checks that you can't cash. And yeah, it's like, this already happened once with Mars, a small test case, not the extinction of all sentient life in the galaxy. And they didn't listen when it was just that small test case. So what makes you think they're going to listen now? I mean, honestly, this is an excellent point. Like, Picard has been crushed into gripping, in the grip of logic and reason here. I don't know how he gets out of it. Like,
no,
the Federation either miraculously has to have a change of heart, or the Q continuum has to show up,
or the Borg the Borg ship has to take out 218 Romulan warbirds.
But if that happens and Starfleet doesn't get religion, then the synth are on the run. They're going to be sitting here on the run forever, or with their finger hovering over speed dial for extinction.
Can you imagine if the next 3 seasons of Star Trek are them on a Borg cube with a bunch of silk robe clad synthetics? It becomes a hippie commune Borg cube.
There's a bunch of half synthetic, half Borg XP.
God, I can't wait. I can't wait
to see what happens to their faces. I can't see the fusion of Borg utilitarian clothing and their, Rise of Slave Girl garb. Like, it's got to be. Oh man, it's going to be amazing.
On the other hand, I do think Picard has a pretty powerful argument with Soji personally here, because when he says, essentially that by doing this, she would fulfill the prophecy that she's been so worried about being true, which is her being the destroyer, right? She desperately doesn't want that to be true. These two things are at war right now in her head. And I think he's got a point, whereas, Soong and the synthetics also have a point.
Well, it's also fucked up, too, that these advanced synthetic beings left this warning / distress signal for people to find, and yet all the organics, it turns insane and wants to make them murder synthetics. It's almost like one of those like time paradoxes. Like, you caused the very situation that you were hoping to avoid.
Yeah, they should have maybe left it in sort of a box that, much like the Romulan puzzle box, a box that only synthetics could unlock.
Yeah.
If they wanted that message to really get to the proper people.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe they thought that's what they were doing with the octenary star system.
Yeah.
I don't know why, though.
I don't either. But it's, like I said, a cool idea. I'm in for it.
Let me ask you this. Are the synthetics actually lie detectors? Are they actually able to detect lies? Because we saw that other race when they went to Free Cloud, which supposedly was able to tell, but they were fooled by a simple drug cocktail that Rafi whipped up in the bathtub. So, like, are they able to tell fact from fiction here?
Because, like, it seems like all they're able to tell, like, all they could ever tell is essentially like a human, like a synthetic lie detector that, like,
like a void comp test, sort of like watching your pupils dilate and
I can hear your heartbeat and your breathing became shallow and your palms are running like faucets.
Your bowels released. Yeah.
You're popping a spontaneous erection. Like, all the signs are you're up to no good and you're telling me bullshit and lies. I think it's that they can't read minds, except for they got one of them that can do a mind meld, so maybe.
Right. I have no idea.
You know what? Saga was super into betazoid culture, studied the fuck out of it, and she can just read people's minds, it turns out.
You're right.
She's boned up on betazoid culture. They got a hold of one of them rings.
Oh yeah, she was hoping Narek would be her Imzadi.
Got a hold of a chalice, and now they're experts. Yeah.
Yep. That's it for the episode.
Sure is. So Commodore O is personally leading the Romulan fleet.
Yep.
And she's still called Commodore.
Was she she was not in Starfleet uniform
Like, is her
anymore.
legal Romulan name Commodore O? Is Lieutenant Rizzo's legal Romulan name Lieutenant Rizzo?
Might be.
Because I know a lot of ranks of Romulan, and I don't think Commodore, they got like, it's all weird, like semi-Vulcan stuff, like Praetor and, Centurion and Legionnaire and shit like that, right? Like,
I think
what is this Commodore?
Do they call her Commodore O at the end? I don't know. But yeah, she certainly is.
The in universe, she's referred to as the fleet is at your command, Commodore. And I'm like, what? I don't understand. Also,
is this a Starfleet sanctioned mission? Is there any possibility there?
That would be wild if they're actually working at even a higher, because I don't know. That doesn't. Unless literally O is taken over in a shadow government way, the entire functionality of all the Federation, because it doesn't seem like Admiral Clancy thinks that's the case. Like their dialogue at the first of the season, but I don't know. Because that was my question: is how the hell does the head of Starfleet Security just bone off on less than a day's notice to a Romulan fleet and engage and lead it into battle?
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine?
Maybe she's blowing her cover right here now.
Can you imagine like the Secretary of Defense? Like when 24 hours leading a Russian fleet into battle against, I don't know, some France.
That would be insane. I mean, they wouldn't be our security officer anymore.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the mechanics of, like, well, I'm signing out for my day. Okay, bodyguards, I want you to take me to the airport. Where are we going? Oh, we're making an unscheduled stop to Russia. Okay, seems kind of weird, Chief, but let's do it. Land in Moscow. He puts on his, like, fucking red fleet uniform, and still everybody's like, this doesn't seem like she has to be trans. Like, things have to happen to get her there. I would like to see the last 24 hours of O's life. How she went from Starfleet Security Director to leader of the combined Romulan Zhat Vash fleet. I would love to see
always
step by step.
In Arcadia Ego Part 2. We've still got that to look forward to. So maybe that's what it is.
It's a 24-hour episode in real time, like 24. And it's going to show, like so much Los Angeles traffic. She's going to cut through all that red tape to get right to the Romulan fleet.
It's 24 hours for using the bathroom just to make up for 24.
Right.
She's probably blown her cover at this point, right? Like, because you have to in that situation. You can't. You're right. You can't go command a Romulan fleet and still be part of Starfleet unless it's a Starfleet sanctioned mission, or you just said, "Fuck my position at Starfleet. I'm now fully a Romulan again."
Seems like she's blown her cover. You're right.
Yeah.
What cover she had as a half Romulan, half Vulcan member of Zhat Vash.
Yeah.
What the kind of background checks do you have to do to become the head of Starfleet Security? I don't know. Shall we do some feedback?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You can send feedback to us at picard@baldmove.com, and if you do, we might consider it. David took that choice, and boy, did it pay off. He says, first off, really been enjoying your coverage of Picard. Well, thank you. I'm a bit meh on the TV show. I liked the first episode a lot, but just found much of the rest to be average until these most recent 2 episodes, which got me back on board. But your coverage has been mostly excellent, and I've been cracking up at your humor and lighthearted ribbing that you give the show, as well as your insights in general. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I think this email was sent in before this episode aired, and so the last 2 he's talking about are the ones before this and before that.
Yeah. But I want to say that thanks, David, because like that's the spirit I'm going for. Like this is kind of like when I'm I love Star Trek, and when I poke fun at this, it's mostly in the vein of like the stormtrooper smacking his head on the Death Star door. It's like I love this show. I know a lot about it, and the more you know about it, the more ridiculous some of this stuff is. Because like I'm also thinking like, would this show be better if you actually came into it with zero knowledge of Star Trek, just like kind of like accepted what they were saying? And because a lot of the problems I'm having is just kind of like, this doesn't fit into what I know of Star Trek.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's kind of like,
it might be.
I'm not saying it would be like it turned into A+ television, but like some of these minuses are only from a long-term Star Trek nerds, calculus. Anyway, he continues, the one area of your coverage I've bristled at from time to time is the way you talk about the writers and the perceived lack of talent, more specifically as it relates to Michael Chabon, whom I know you haven't called out directly, but it's kind of implied. Yeah, that's fair. I've implied a lot about the people running the show. Now, don't get me wrong. I do agree that some of the writing on the show is weak, and I don't know where the fault lies, but I just got to say that I don't think it's an issue of talent at least on his part. He's a respected and award-winning novelist who wrote Wonder Boys, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, The Yiddish Policeman's Union, among others. He's also got some solid screenwriting credits in the Wonder Boys adaptation and Spider-Man 2, although more of a mixed bag with John Carter. I don't know Spider-Man. I don't know. It wasn't that the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I thought he was like, this isn't the Sam Raimi one. It's the shitty one.
The Garfield ones?
Yeah, the Garfield ones. But here's your point. It's entirely possible to be a very good writer and not be a great showrunner. because they are somewhat related, but also very different skills. And the timetables are different, and you can't just like work on something until it's done. So like, I don't think that any of these are like, when I say they're not great writers or not great showrunners, I'm just comparing them to people like, you know, the people they're writing Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and you know, The Leftovers and Watchmen and things that the guys who made Chernobyl, stuff that's like really interesting and nuanced and deep. And Star Trek just has never been that. So this is as of a piece with Star Trek, but I guess there was a little bit of a hope with me that with Picard they would try to do like a truly modern, you know, serialized kind of Star Trek.
Yeah,
but they've not elected to really try that. But
well, it feels like they are trying. It's just that they're not. I don't know. In a thing we're being taken to task for taking the writers to task, I'll say up to the challenge, but it's a pretty high bar to clear nowadays. You know, if this were 15 years ago when television was not what it is today, I think it'd be a lot easier to sort of produce some really, really strong Star Trek in this style.
Oh yeah, for sure. They also say, David says, so I think it's safe to say the man isn't lacking in talent. He also, to my knowledge, had nothing to do with Star Trek Disco. I thought that wasn't... See, a lot of this assertions I'm getting just from like r/Star Trek and like Red Letter Media's coverage of it. I think this Kurtzman guy has got a lot more, you know, they seem like people blame him more than Shaban. I don't know. Because I haven't really gotten into the history and look at these guys' careers clearly as much as you. I'm just judging on like what they're actually doing, you know, and what I saw from Disco, the reputation of Enterprise, etc. So anyway, I think that kind of covers that concern. Pierre, I like the French flair on the fake Frenchman show. Says, as a viewer that only really knows most about Star Trek lore with the lowercase L secondhand via you guys, and I've read some of the Memory Alpha entries here and there, I really appreciate your coverage. I don't need someone fanboying and hand-waving away plot contrivances. I appreciate your honest, nostalgic takes on the show. Thank you, Pierre.
Yeah.
I know you aren't really watching Disco, but this whole season feels like 2B of Disco in all of its AI plot. The crew of the Discovery spent most of last season fighting an all-powerful AI named Control that used nanobots to control or assimilate humans and corrupt cybernetic crew members. Honestly, AI is a massive sci-fi concept, but it seems crazy that there's this much overlap in the only two new Trek series it's been in a long while. The artificial intelligence in Disco went so far as to utter the phrase "struggle is pointless," but then seemingly intentionally veered away from any Borg connection. All this to say that I really believe Disco should have gone another direction, or Picard should have stayed away from the AI for a season or two.
Yeah, the fungus warp drive was pretty interesting in season 1 and very different from anything I'd seen before.
Yeah, but they went for this. It does feel weird, but on the other hand, I gotta say that like Picard and with the data angle and the Borg angle, it does kind of lend itself to the most natural. Like, credit where credit's due. I think the central topics that this show has decided to tackle and address are a great fit for the universe and for the characters that they've selected.
Yeah, and kind of for our modern society as well.
And when they're focusing on that, the show really hums. You know, Picard coming to grips with his failures and his emotional inadequacies and relating that to Data, and, you know, like, it all feels pretty good. Sometimes a lot of some silly stuff gets in the way, but not having seen Disco since I watched the season 2 premiere, I think 2 episodes after that, and I'm like, nah, this hasn't really gotten much better. And bailed on it. It doesn't feel like it's a retread to me.
No, it seems like a lot of modern sci-fi is going this direction. You know, the bulk of the stuff that's on television feels like it's dealing with artificial intelligence. Like, you just had Devs come out.
Yeah.
There's the apparently 2 Star Trek series that do it. Westworld. There's a lot of stuff right now that's sort of in the zeitgeist about AI.
What if this is like in the 50s where people are like, God damn, another flying saucer movie?
Yeah.
Like, you know, aliens, like it's like you couldn't swing a sci-fi stick without aliens from another world invading you. Well, this is like what we're currently worried about is automation and AI causing economic anxiety, causing it makes sense. It makes sense. That said, I felt like this episode felt the most rewarding. It's a shame that most episodes that they built in the season are, as the story, completely ignored the structure of week-to-week episodes. I love my myth arcs and my TV, and I don't think the episodic procedural structure of television is what we needed, but it would have been nice to see some of these episodes feel a little bit more complete on their own. Yeah, I think the X-Files would have been a good model for this show.
Mm-hmm.
Where, they're going from planet to planet to do some kind of unrelated prep to the main stuff, and they get into little adventures and whatnot, but then there's also the steady ticking time that they have to figure out about the synths or whatever. And like early seasons of Justified kind of had that, you have a gangster of the week, but then you'd also have the overall kind of crime family plot. They could have done that, but they didn't.
Yeah, Disco's doing, well, at least in season 1, was doing something kind of like that. It was definitely more serialized in Star Trek in the past, but it was also episodic or procedural on occasion, like a few episodes where they'd go down to a planet and be stuck there because like their brains were being affected by something or whatever. Yeah, they did a few of those.
And then Pierre finally wants to know any ideas what the future of this show holds for you guys.
I mean, we, like you said, we have a lot of fun covering this. I think as long as it doesn't get too crazy in the schedule, I could see myself covering a season 2.
Yeah, as long as Patrick Stewart's attached and they don't replace him with the underwear model. And as long as I'm having this much fun covering it, because I have a ball watching this stuff. I could see, and you're right, but it's all about the schedule. Like if Westworld, Fargo, and Better Call Saul and something and West
the new Game of Thrones show.
And it all comes back in the same period of time, then Picard's probably going to get the bump.
Yeah.
Or like the expand, like there's the other better shows that are more important to us could come back and push it out of the schedule, but I'm inclined to make room for it. All else being equal. Next email is John wants some help here. Star Trek Picard has a story, a season-long arc, and this is what it's about. The Zhat Vash were formed hundreds of years ago after discovering the admonition which blows your mind and makes most people kill themselves. The leftover members of the Zhat Vash, the ones who could survive this brain-melting admonition, the ones who are now totally devoted to this universe-saving secret mission, they knew nothing for hundreds of years. They didn't care about Data or Lore or B4 or any of the robot plots from the original series. But now, years after synths have become a full slave labor force in the Federation, hundreds of years after they were formed to stop this, they spring into action with their secret plan to get all synths banned. It works, at least in the Federation. Who knows about any other system of worlds in the quadrants of the universe? Bruce Maddox, roboticist, whose work is now illegal, finds his way into a super secret robot planet that no one else has ever found. He just, finds it. I think this is the first flaw.
Yeah.
He created this world.
Yes, he did.
Every one of these robots living on it are been born in the last 14 years or so.
Yep.
So he made the utopia. He didn't find it. Yes, that tracks. Now he's fulfilled and happy working with Soon's ancestor with a bunch of beings just like the ones he had tried to steal years ago, Data. But he wants to stay there and keep working on his dream. But for some reason, he sends his human passing creations Dodge and Soji off the robot planet to do what? Here's where we start getting murky, I think.
Okay.
Because I don't know. I don't know what he meant by getting to the bottom of the ban. And it seems like sending a double agent who's completely brainwashed was of limited utility too. Like that did more harm than good. But they kind of hand waved away with that, with Data saying something along the lines of, or not Data, Dr. Soon saying something along the lines of, Bruce, the ban made him paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
So he does all this weird spy shit. Anyway, it says, but he then leaves the planet for some reason, why did he leave he had Utopia here.
Maybe he needed some kind of funding, but I don't know why. Yeah, why did he go to Betazoid?
Because he was worried, because the Romulans came and nuked his lab?
Yes, but his lab wasn't on that planet or something, because
the Romulans couldn't scan from orbit to see this dense pack of synthetic lives that have 2 human lives in it too.
So his lab must have been totally separate from the place we visited this episode, right?
Yeah, and Soji said it was like a spaceport, right? Or like some kind of old, like she. I don't think this is the place the androids are living on the planet. This is a place.
Okay, yeah. It's just the place where she was born.
It doesn't make sense that Bruce Maddox would have his lab halfway across the world or in the North Pole or whatever.
Or that she would have been born in some place other than his lab.
Yeah, because soon his lab is right there. Right there in the heart of the complex.
Yeah.
So anyway, why did Bruce plant the clue to finding the planet in Soji's dreams, but also plant an inability for Soji to get the clue? That's a good question, because if she needs to find out her plan or where her planet's from, then it just seems like once she figures out like why the Zat Vash are doing what they're doing, they could just activate her. She would have full control of her memories and her capabilities, and she could just get back to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why the elaborate coding in a dream? I think you're supposed to understand that is her subconscious positronic brain dealing with the cognitive dissonance of living a life that she knows is unreal. Like, this is her brain rejecting the false narrative she's been fed.
No, that's the thing. Like, Narek in the season has been pushing her to the edge of activating because he needs those memories to unlock. So I don't think that's a flaw in her programming. It's just an exploit that Narek is running on her, essentially.
Right. So why was the clue to find the planet just that it had 2 red moons and electrical storms, and then we get there and none of these things? That's the
electrical storms are weird, yeah.
Like red moons and all that. Like, I think
we see the red moons as they pull up to the planet?
I guess, yeah. Maybe the electrical storms are what's going to really do a number on the Romulan fleet.
Maybe
so intense lightning shoots up in the orbit, and
I was gonna say lightning would just hit the La Serena and the power would come back on and it'd be fine.
Yeah. They're gonna take Borg nanites, inject it into La Serena. Lightning's gonna strike it. It's gonna Frankenstein back together.
Or lightning hits the Borg cube and suddenly they can defeat all 218 Romulan warbirds.
You know, we didn't talk about so many things, even though this is a super long podcast. Like, what do you think of Rios's siren tattoo? He's really gone all in on the mermaids. I didn't notice his giant shoulder tattoo that's of a mermaid. Oh man. Once I see this guy in good lighting, I see he's got the mermaid tattoo, and he's got actually really bad bangs.
Don't they just stick up?
I don't rarely see dudes with bad bangs, but this is just like his whole head looked like a cowlick.
My mind is blanking. I can't pull up what Rios looks like in my head.
Devastatingly good-looking guy, but the bangs and good light. I don't know. I don't know what how I feel about him. I mean, obviously I feel bad, but let's see where I can figure. I got to pick up this my point in the screed here. So the Romulans take that one clue that doesn't match the planet at all, sends what looks like every ship the Romulans own on this mission to destroy the synths. We were earlier told that the Zat Vash are a super secret organization that even the Romulan spy agency Tal Shiar considers to be a fairy tale, but they somehow can order up the entire Romulan fleet on a moment's notice and have it led by the Starfleet head of security. Yep, and the Romulans are still refugees from a destroyed homeworld, right? Yeah. A lot of stuff doesn't make sense. I looked it up when you were talking about one of the scenes. Wolf 359, which was a very large, unprecedented engagement, was 40 starships.
Oh boy. Now, okay, so 218 is
now here's the thing: is like this might track in Star Trek lore that like Wolf 359 was a turning point in the Federation where they started like leaning into more nakedly military things. They started to developing
the Defiant.
A blade of armor, quantum torpedoes, ramping up their military. Then the Dominion War came and all that stuff just went into overdrive. So I guess I could believe that, like, after this Cold War and then you had this actual war and Borg War explosion, that maybe now 220 is kind of a Wolf 359 fleet. But yeah, how does did the Romulan Empire just get taken over by the Zat Vash? Did they declare martial law? What does that even mean when you've lost your homeworld? And you get this diaspora and like these squatting desert planets. Like I don't know. I don't think that's the thing. I don't think the showrunners do either.
Well, let's say this is a part 1 of a 2-part episode, and some of this might be explained. Like it could literally be that she's working with Starfleet, and that Starfleet has dispatched this fleet of Romulan ships. Because who would have Romulan ships at this point, right?
Yeah. Romulans.
Like the Romulan society is all but non-existent. They certainly, I wouldn't think, have an entire fleet of starships to send on a mission like this.
Right. And
but maybe Starfleet would.
Yeah. But they're all warbirds.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like even the Borg sensor showed that they're all warbirds too.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, this is very Star Wars, where you've got the Galactic Empire, or the Galactic Republic has been, in like 20 years, reconquered by an old offshoot faction of the Empire, and are now on their heels down the one ship. But, like, how did this happen? They don't really explain.
No.
Anyway,
I'm going to give them an episode because it is a two-parter. That's
true.
I imagine none of this will be explained.
There's a lot riding on this two-part
It
thing.
really is.
So let's wrap this up. It says, meanwhile, our heroes know what this planet is because Riker and Troy's daughter knows an old captain who recognized the description of red moons and the electrical storms again, even though that's not what the planet looks like. What is you had a theory that this captain was a Q. That kind of dovetails into my theory that, like, Synth Q and Meat Q are going to show up and, like, rumble. It's going to be Jets and Sharks. West Side Story. Alpha Quadrant Story.
Sure, a lot of snapping.
You think... Lots of snap. And when the Qs start snapping, holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Happens.
World's end.
Q's snapping, shit's happening.
You feel better or worse about the Q theory?
I think it would be amazing. There's no way it's going to happen, but it would be fantastic, and I would love to see it.
So they open up a Borg transwarp conduit that Soji just suddenly knows how to find, that to leap ahead of the entire Romulan fleet. I will say, it's very, even though I was prepared for it, it's super jarring to have Soji just know everything now.
Yeah.
Like, just on site, like, oh, but I guess she's an android and it's, like, locked away through some kind of android science. So they immediately get into battle with Narek, who followed them, but it doesn't matter because he's down and taken prisoner and has to wait for his sister anyway, so he might well just have come with her. They get to Robot City, where they learn that even though we had to say Commander O is half Vulcan so she can mind meld, apparently androids can do it now too. Picard needs his ship back, so the androids give him a magic button which uses imagination to fix things. Cool, that's cool. Just uses imagination. After mind melding, the androids get the message from the synth god beings that they will totally show up and kick the ass of anyone threatening you. Also, they won't just kick the ass, they'll wipe away all organic life in the quadrant you've been having trouble with. Now this entirely peaceful and isolated planet, where they've just been kicking soccer balls and having quite a time for years, are immediately on board. Will destroy all life. Yeah, I mean, that's literally the plot, you know?
What about all the planets and races in the Federation that haven't dabbled in artificial life?
Nope, gone.
Are they also wiped out?
Yeah, like what? I mean, it is Star Trek as hell to have this binary thing.
How about, like, dogs and cats? How about elephants?
Yeah, like, living together. It's impossible.
No, are they going to wipe out, like, every organic being?
Hell yeah, why would you wait for once organics? So organic life, if you properly appreciate it, we are the Sabo around the round that is artificial intelligence. Once we have delivered that payload, we're just redundant. We're just a husk.
Sure.
And we can be sloughed off.
I'm just wondering, where's the line of responsibility here?
Well, and I accidentally, when I said, like, the AI are like the Avengers and they're here to kick Thanos' ass, I'm like, that would actually be cool. Like, if these AI, they weren't there to exterminate all organic life. It's just like, we're gonna beat this Federation and Romulan plot, and then we're gonna, like, don't make us come back. Like, you better leave our AI brothers and sisters alone, or we'll come back with the hurting. Like, why do they have to be so fucking... It sounds like they're bringing
the pain.
Yeah, why do they have to be like Thanos instead of the Avengers? Why does the AI have to be, like, from a human perspective, immoral?
I don't know.
No shades of gray here. But anyway, that's the feedback we had for this week. We'll be back next week for the thrilling conclusion of in Arcadia Ego. It'd be super classic Trek if we had to wait like 9 months for this.
Right. Split it over 2 seasons.
Yeah. The classic part 1, part 2. Maybe it's a part 3.
Oh, you just blew my mind. I didn't even know you could do a part 3. I didn't think that was legal.
I think it might be an unprecedented in Star Trek. Why didn't they ever do a 3-parter or 4-parter?
We're probably speaking at our ass. Voyager probably did 8 3-parters in its final season.
I'm talking about just like through TNG. I couldn't even swear that there wasn't like a 5-episode arc through. I mean, wasn't almost all the seasons in the last Deep Space? I remember the last 3 seasons being essentially serialized. But that's
Yeah,
not
they
true.
absolutely were.
There was individual just like them fucking around in Deep Space Nine and finding wormholes, and they still had other Star Trek adventures, right?
But it was mostly like once you got to the Dominion War, it was pretty serialized.
Yeah, that's how I remembered it, but I haven't seen it in many, many years, and I know you watched it just a couple years ago. But that's our show for Picard. We'll be back next week for the ultimate, the final, the season 1 finale of Star Trek Picard. Please send in your feedback. Send in your feedbacks to feedbacks@baldmove.com. Please send your feedback to Picard@baldmove.com. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm A.Ron.
And I'm Jim.
Have a great one.